and welcome. My name's Michelle and I am a licensed esthetician. Today we are going to be talking about all things that have to do with cleansing, from makeup removal to getting the skin prepped and primed for products to follow. We are going to run through all the do's and don'ts that you should be following when it comes to your cleansing step. So let's go ahead and get started with our skin therapy session. I would like to start off by saying that everything said in this video is my own personal professional opinion. I am not a doctor, I am not able to diagnose, and I do not claim to know everything in the world. This is what I have based off of my current research and studies and personal experience in the field. And if some of my don'ts are things that you absolutely love and are working for you, then so be it, you do you. I am just here to kind of guide you along the way when it comes to your overall skin well-being. Of course, if you have any skincare questions, requests, please leave those in the comment section down below. I try to answer every single one of them down there, and I have been screenshotting to kind of come up with a list to do a skincare like question and answer video coming up here very shortly. These videos take a little bit of time for me to kind of pull together. I do a little bit of research, I do a little bit of personal like experimentation, I do it a little bit with my clients to see what works and what doesn't for them, because this isn't just about what like works for me. I want it to work and find out different skills for everyone out there, because that's what this is about. It's about educating, trying something new, and feeling like our best selves. So jumping right in, cleansing the skin is just like brushing our teeth. We need to be doing it morning and night, twice a day, to make sure we have the perfect canvas of prepping and hydrating and protecting and using SPF in the morning. And those of us that wear SPF and makeup throughout the day need to be removing that, the dirt, grime, pollution, everything that kind of like collects on the skin. Even if you don't wear makeup, there are things that are collecting on the surface of the skin, and we need to be removing those before going to bed. As you know, that is when we are repairing like tenfold, so why not give your body the chance to be as successful as possible and not be fighting off any outside distractions, as we'll call them. So along the lines of makeup removal, makeup wipes, they are not a cleanser. They are not an acceptable means of cleansing the skin, pulling things out of the pores, removing dirt and grime. Think of it as just like a baby wipe for your face. Like it's a suitable baby wipe for the face, okay? It is smearing things around. It may, you know, attract a little bit of makeup that you'll see on the actual makeup wipe, but we often are a little bit too harsh when using those because we want to be quick. We see it as a quick method, and you start pulling and tugging and rubbing, and you're breaking down and like stretching out your skin, you're breaking down your collagen, creating like a loss of laxity. We want to keep this as like tight and lifted as possible for as long as possible, right? Nobody wants like jowls hanging down. Nobody does, okay? Another thing I hear a lot with like even my personal clients is that they're using makeup wipes as a cleansing step and then doing nothing afterwards. Meaning you're not rinsing it off, you're leaving those harsh surfactants that are meant to start breaking up the makeup on the skin. And I know a lot of those packages say that it's not required to rinse afterwards, but I'm telling you, like, it's like leaving a cleanser on your face. You would never do that. You would never smear a cleanser onto your face and be like, I'm good, and like go to bed. You just wouldn't. So if you are doing that and you're leaving those harsh surfactants on the surface of the skin, you're compromising your barrier function, which means you're going to throw out of whack all of the moisture barrier in there, your oil barrier. You're gonna start having some sensitivity, maybe even redness, dry patches. You could start getting some breakouts because we're not getting everything out of the pore and cleared out, which, by the way, like oil in the pore is like the perfect breeding ground for acne, okay? Like the acne bacteria loves an anaerobic, which means an oxygenless area, and like down in the deep parts of our pilosebaceous, that little bit of our pore, where all the oils and sebum all collect, is the perfect environment for breeding and making a big pustule. So nobody likes pimples. I mean, I've never met somebody who's like, yeah, I love my breakouts. I love them so much. No. So let's do some things to try to avoid those. Best practices for those that wear makeup and SPF throughout the day is to do a double cleanse. This is not new. We have heard of this floating around the internet, but I'll break it down for you here within this video because I want to cover all things cleansing. So we would start off with an oil-based cleanser. Now this could actually be something that's a liquidy oil, or maybe like a balm that turns into an oil, or like something that's a little greasier, or even like a frothing cleanser. Two of the products that I personally use to remove my makeup, and it kind of depends on the day with which one I'm using and my level of laziness. I absolutely love using the Pharmacy Green Clean. This is a makeup melting cleansing balm. I got this in a Ipsy Plus box a couple months back, and I remember when I opened it I was kind of like, another cleansing balm. I've tried cleansing balms in the past. I don't like using liquidy oils to remove my makeup because I don't like feeling that texture on my skin, and they would always leave behind a film even after using a cleansing step immediately after. Like there's just something for me that it didn't jive. Whereas when I try this one, and I'm getting down pretty deep in there, I use the tiniest little bit, and I will lightly apply it all over the skin, gently use my fingertips around the eyes, and then rinse it off. Something I've been doing lately is I found these little silicone pads with like these little fingers, these little silicone nubs here at Walmart. It comes in a 2-pack. And it's got like a little finger holder on the back, and I will apply the Green Clean all over my face very, very lightly, and then ever so slightly, I'm barely touching the skin, I will do little circles with my little scrubber to help break up the makeup even more, and especially around the eye. And I'm telling you, I'm not even moving the skin. That is how gentle I am touching the face. And I find that that grips the makeup even better, so that when I am going in with my cleanser afterwards, after rinsing this off, I just feel not tight and squeaky clean. We never want to be squeaky clean, but just cleansed. Everything, all the junk and gunk and all the makeup is off. And that is the goal, and I couldn't be happier with my little mini routine I have going on right now, okay? The next cleanser I personally follow up with, and also can kind of eliminate the Green Clean step, is the Siesta Cleansing Gel. This can be used as a makeup removing step. I just find that because I tend to wear a heavier amount of makeup, the Green Clean works a little bit better for me. Otherwise, I do have to go in with the Siesta Cleanser twice to even get all of the makeup off, if that makes sense. Like, it does well, but I wear so much that I need to do like a double cleanse, or triple cleanse, I guess, at that point. This, you use just a tiny little bit. It doesn't come with a pump. This is something I added onto my bottle personally. And this is from, if I didn't mention, the Giammarini line. It's a very lightweight frothing cleanser, which means it doesn't come up to like a big bubbly foam. It's coming up to like frothiness. Like, think of your latte, which means it's going to be less extracting. The bigger the bubbles, the more surfactants and more harshness there is to the cleanser. That would be really great for someone with extremely big pores and oily skin. However, I find that for most people, and even myself, where I do have some larger pores here, this does an amazing job to make sure we're leaving everything nice and balanced, but I'm removing everything that needs to be removed. This is the step that you definitely go in and do a couple little extra circles gently around the nose, center of the chin, the areas that we tend to get our blackheads the most. We want to make sure that we're being a little more invigorating. That doesn't mean rough or tough. That just means being mindful to hit those areas and get to those areas. And just keep in mind with any part of cleansing or working with the face, it's not necessarily about the pressure we're using. We want to be very light with the pressure always. It's more about the repetition. So definitely hitting an area 3 or 4 times with some light little motions can definitely help you get everything out. Something that can aid you in that step is using a cleansing brush or cleansing device. So for me, I would go in with my Green Clean, use this to help kind of loosen everything up, rinse it off. apply my Siesta Gel Cleanser, which is already frothed up from doing it in my fingers, apply that to the skin, and then I would pull out my little Foreo. I do also have Clarisonics. I've done reviews on these in the past. I actually own 2 Clarisonics and like 3 of these Foreos because you know me, I'm a skin nerd. I love playing with different devices. I just don't find myself pulling for my Clarisonics anymore now that I have these Foreos. This one in particular was in a FabFitFun box, I believe, and it is not rechargeable, whereas the original Luna that I have, like the old style one, is rechargeable. These have little silicone nubs, very similar to the little like cheapy pad that I got at Walmart. However, these are a little bit longer and they have a different texture to them in different areas, and especially the larger ones. Now they have like the Luna 3. I really want to get the Luna 3. It's a little bit taller. There's a lot more little fingers, little nubs to it, and there's different settings that you can kind of connect. I believe you connect it with your phone, and you can even do like a facial massage. And I was watching another review on it and I was nerding out about it, and now I really, really want one. Anyways, these work fabulous still, even if they're not as high-tech as the new Luna 3. But okay, so you have your cleanser on. It's nice and frothy and already on there. I get this a little bit damp. I'll turn it on and I'll just start doing light little circles. I'm letting the sonic vibrations from the tool pull out all of the junk and gunk from the pores. If you watched my Esthetician review skincare tools video, you'll know that I used a skin scrubber which uses ultrasonic technology to pull things out of the pore. It has like a spatula effect. It's more for extractions. Same idea. This is a little bit more gentle, something you can do every single day, every other day, whatever you feel best fits into your routine. I like using it at night, and it just feels good, and it feels like you're massaging your face. So I can't even imagine the new one where it actually has like a massage setting and the technique. That probably feels amazing. I don't know if I mentioned this already. None of this is sponsored. Okay, if something was sent to me, I will definitely mention it, but yeah, none of this is sponsored. This is all just me sharing my knowledge and like favorites. This is genuinely a favorite, and I have these, I bought these, and it's not that they're bad, they're just not something I personally pull for. And I definitely don't like the ones that rotate. These don't rotate, but the facial brushes that do, it's too much for the daily. It's too abrasive. There's movement, you're moving your tissue, you are pulling on the skin a little bit more. I just personally stay away from those. That's my personal opinion. So speaking about being over abrasive, that kind of makes me think of exfoliation, and I want to just kind of touch on exfoliating in this video just a little bit. I want to stick with the more cleansing route, and I want to just say exfoliators are not cleansers unless they are specially formulated, and it says it on the bottle that it can be used as a cleansing step, and those are really more in the clinical line side of things. Like Obagi has one, their 360 cleanser has a bit of grit to it, but it is considered a cleanser. Murad has one, their AHA BHA perfecting polish, I think it's called. That one is considered a cleanser and exfoliator. It is not your makeup removing step. Nothing is going to take the place of using a makeup wipe if you choose to do so, or using something like a cleansing balm or cleansing oil. Nothing is taking that step, okay? You will always use a cleanser right after, and in my world, I will use my it sounded weird. I use my cleansing balm, I use my cleanser, whether it be with my fingers or my Foreo device, and then I will pat dry and do an exfoliation step. My personal preference is I don't like using physical exfoliation on my skin, hardly at all. I do it maybe once or twice a month, if that. I just have noticed that sometimes I'll get in the cycle of using one and it feels so good the day of, but then the dryness would just come back like a couple days later, if not more. So that means I'm overdoing it, even if I felt like I was being really gentle. Because again, it's more about the repetition of movements in the area, not the pressure of using like anything on the face. As a rule of thumb, most people can handle exfoliation of some type 2 to 3 times a week, because we want to be getting rid of that top layer of dry skin. We want to be using things like later on in our routine, like a retinol, which will loosen up the cells, and then a glycolic to kind of dust everybody away. Different conversation, but still idea of like why we need to do such a great cleansing step so we can support what we're doing later on in our routine. With that being said, exfoliators are meant to additionally deep cleanse out the pores and resurface and polish the skin so that you have a fresh start for new cells to come up to the top, keeping a fresher, brighter complexion. And yeah, it kind of helps with dehydration, helps with product penetration, and just overall like health and vibrancy to the skin. So my personal preference when it comes to using this exfoliation step is chemical exfoliations and enzymes. They work differently. Same idea that they are loosening things up and turning cells over, they just work in a different manner. My personal favorite at the moment is the Bioglycolic Face Cleanser. This is a follicular cleanser, so it's going down into that pilosebaceous unit and pulling out all of the junk and gunk. This is a creamy cleanser. You apply it to dry skin. So let's say I'm doing it after my siesta cleanser, I will pat dry, give myself a moment to evaporate a little bit of the water on the skin, and I will apply about a dime-sized amount of the bioglycolic to the face and do some light circles. Sometimes if I have like a breakout or two, it will kind of zing in the area for a second, but not anything that is unbearable or alarming by far. It can be used as your daily cleanser. I just tend to be a bit more bougie and use 3 steps, and I find that if I use this too many days in a row, I do get a tiny bit dry. So it's almost like my skin needs a little bit of a break. So I'm glad I have like the 2 to kind of rotate between when it comes to my cleansing and light exfoliation. So this is totally acceptable to be used as a daily light exfoliator. I know that is a lot, and it can be a bit confusing with what can be considered a daily exfoliator and what is too harsh. I would encourage you to maybe reach out to the company and ask. I would encourage you to meet with an esthetician, and sometimes it even says it on the bottle. Like I have other exfoliators, the Dr. Brandt one, the micro polish. I didn't bring it in here because we weren't going to talk this much about exfoliation, but that is one of my favorites. When I am doing a physical exfoliation, it has such a beautiful, fine, creamy grit to it. The one from Dr. Lancer is a really great one. Both of those are pretty pricey. But like I said, I use like a tiny little pea-sized amount, and I do it only like once or twice a month. I probably should do it a little bit more, but I just love how my skin glows when I'm using more of a chemical exfoliation and versus like a physical one. Now I lightly touched on enzymes. Enzymes are like little Pac-Men that eat away that top layer of waxy, occlusive, dry skin. Like my clients that are like, I'm putting so much moisturizer on, Michelle, and my skin is still so dry. And I'm like, that's because it's not getting past the wall of dry skin. So you're like essentially just wasting your product at that point. And I hate saying that to people, and I try to find an elegant way to say it, but like, you are wasting product because you're not exfoliating properly. And using physical exfoliation isn't always getting everything, because sometimes you'll have your like that top layer of skin is called the stratum corneum, and it looks like little cornflakes. That's how you can remember the name. So there's these pieces that are kind of like odd-ended. Think of like the dry areas around our nose when we have a cold type of deal, when it gets flaky. So when you exfoliate those off with a physical exfoliation means something manual, something with grit, or like a microderm. It's taking off that top layer, but then when something new comes up, you're still continuing that cycle of uneven texture and dryness. Whereas chemicals, they do not discriminate. They knock everybody out. So you have a level playing field and a fresh surface. Again, you do need to be gentle with the chemical exfoliations because you can have a chemical burn. You need to be using the right formulation for your skin type. I say if you haven't used anything before, and you may be on the air of like a sensitive skin type at the moment because we need to rebuild your barrier, start off with something that has a large molecular weight, like a lactic acid. Lactic and glycolic are in the same acid family. Glycolic is like king acid. It's a tiny little molecular weight that kind of travels down and opens up the hydration channels in the skin. Lactic acid, just the same idea, but he's a little bit bigger and kind of sits and is a little more gentle. He's a little more friendly. So you'll see lactic acid in a lot of the over-the-counter products because it's a lot more friendly. Something else to kind of keep in mind when it comes to cleansers are the treatment cleansers. So we kind of already touched on how my bioglycolic cleanser I personally consider as my treatment cleanser. There's also a really great one from Derma E that has a stronger base of salicylic in it. So if I'm having a wild amount of breakouts or even like on the body, I will use that one maybe every other day. If I use it twice a day, every day, I definitely get dried out, flaky, and it's too much for me personally. But there are formulations out there that are meant to be used as treatment cleansers, whereas there's cleansers out there like my Siesta Gel cleanser that are very gentle, pH balanced. I don't think we've touched on that yet. So the pH of a cleanser is critical, okay? Now, why is that important? So for instance, let's talk about this one because I have it in front of me and we've been talking about it in the video. This is a pH balanced cleanser. Our skin wants to be on the more acidic side of things, 4.5 to 5.5 on the range of the pH scale, right? Potential hydrogen. A lot of cleansers, especially those in the prestige lines and drugstore and things that aren't going through clinical trials, let's face it, they just kind of pump out products to the masses. They tend to have lots of harsh surfactants in them, sodium lauryl sulfate. They are very alkaline, right? Think of things that are very cleansing that you use afterwards and you feel that like extra shiny and tight and you're like, wow, that feels good, but you know it's not like a good feel good, if that makes sense. Like it's too much was taken off. It's requiring your body to rebound all the way back from being down here on the more basic, more alkaline side of things, all the way back to being more acidic, where it wants to be in homeostasis, right? In the meanwhile of traveling back and boomeranging back on its own, you are more prone to sensitivities, redness, irritation, breakouts, which can lead to damage and inflammation in the skin, which then leads to hyperpigmentation and breakouts. Why are we doing this to ourselves? So two things that we can do: use a pH balanced cleanser that's already in the realm of where our skin wants to be so they work together. Or if you are and you have to use something that is a bit more on the alkaline side or a bit more, I don't want to say harsh, but just a bit more surfactant to it, we have to be rebalancing with a toner. That is the purpose of a toner. We're not going to touch too much on there because we have toners and essences and treatment tonics and all this other stuff that goes into that step. But the toner essentially is meant to rebalance the pH in the skin so that you are happy and in the 4.5/5.5 range. And when you have happy skin, it stays hydrated more. It will accept the products that you're applying afterwards. That's another point of these products. I remember when going through the training, when they were kind of like talking about the pH of them and how well they are balanced, is that you are prepping your skin to already be happy and conditioned for any of the products to follow. And I have seen a personal difference in my skin since switching over to these specific products and since realizing that, because then I would start using some of the cleansers that I had in my shower that I needed to use up and was wondering why I was getting dry when I was using other amazing products to follow. It's because I was never rebalancing my pH. I didn't realize until going through school and being educated on that that was such a big deal. That may have been why I was getting so much acne. Now, some of it is uncontrollable. It's hormones, it's dietary, it's environmental, but I beg to say a lot of us that have acne, especially if it's like up on the tops of the cheeks and forehead and things like that, I'd be curious to see what type of cleanser they're using and the products to follow. A couple more things to touch on before we wrap up this cleansing video is not all cleansers are meant to be used in the eye area. Many of the treatment cleansers that we were just talking about, for instance, like my bioglycolic or the one from Derma E I was mentioning, are not to be used anywhere below the brow or above your orbital bone. It is not safe. That area is so delicate. It is very thin. I mean, beyond paper thin, right? We all know that because that's why we're so gentle about tapping out our eye creams and things like that. You have to be using a proper cleanser. And for instance, these are eye safe and they are okay to be in that area to remove makeup or even just cleanse in general. I kind of already mentioned this one, but not all cleansers need water when being applied. A lot of creamy cleansers, a lot of cleansers that are formulated for drier skin types, if we didn't touch on that already, creamier, more lotiony textures to cleansers are perfect for dry skin. If you are having winter skin, you are having some like a rosacea flare up, you are having maybe very inflamed wild acne going on, and you want to just be as gentle and kind and bring down that inflammation as much as possible to like eliminate the damage as much as possible, creamy cleansers are amazing. You apply them dry to the skin often. Read the bottle, they usually tell you in the directions. This kind of like makes me think, because the bioglycolic does need to be applied dry and removed with either a damp cloth or a nice warm rinse. Warm, not super cold and not extremely hot. We don't want to be stripping the skin either way. I mean, cool water feels really good, but it'll rinse off better with nice lukewarm water. So the last thing I kind of want to touch on before finishing up this cleansing video is a couple of readers' questions that I have saved in my phone here. One is from Candy_XOXO1. She said, how many times a week is recommended for using face scrubs? We did kind of touch on this earlier in the video, but I'll just revisit it now. It really depends on your skin's needs. And general rule of thumb is like once or twice a week. So for instance, if you are having really dry, flaky skin, I would start off with something like a lactic acid to start breaking down some of those dry flakes. Again, no picking or peeling. Let it do its process. You will get rebalanced, I promise. Just have patience and use that maybe the beginning of the week. See how the skin goes throughout the rest of the week, using your humectants and to drive water molecules to the skin, and then going in with something like a really shea butter like creamy moisturizer on top to hold in all of that and lock it all in and kind of balance out the oils, because again, hydration and moisturization are like two different things. You want to get rebalanced. It's going to take time. Be patient with yourself. Now, if you are more on the oily side and you're like, wow, I'm like getting shiny like 2 hours into starting my day, you're going to want to exfoliate a little bit more often. Using maybe something that is classified as a daily exfoliator is a great option. Still kind of follow up, or preface it with a makeup remover and like a gentle cleanser, and then go in with your gentle daily exfoliant. Just make sure that it's perfectly, like it's meant to do that. Like it's meant to be your daily exfoliation step. If you have more aging skin and you're trying to combat some fine lines and wrinkles, you are going to want to exfoliate a little bit more, just like with the oily skin types, but not overdoing it either, because you don't want to be tipping the scale. So it's all like a personal experimentation type of thing. If you notice that you are having dryness, redness, irritation, you may be exfoliating too close together. Let's go ahead and add an extra day, kind of like feel it out. If you find that you're like getting built up skin, you're starting to see some lines in certain areas and that dehydration pulling, then we need to kind of kick the exfoliation up a notch. Not necessarily in the level of what you're using just yet, but in the frequency of when you're doing that. This is why it is so important to meet with a professional, to meet with an esthetician. Yes, dermatologists work with the skin. However, they're more about solving skin problems and issues and diagnosing you, whereas estheticians, we're trained to kind of treat and ail conditions in the skin. Another question is from Fana1212, and she said, okay, is daily exfoliation too much for the face? This is very similar to the previous question, and it really comes down to your skin type and if the cleanser is specially formulated for daily exfoliation. And even if the cleanser is formulated for daily exfoliation and you start using it on a daily basis after your cleansing step and makeup removing step, you see irritation, slow back. It's okay. Even if it's a daily cleanser, your skin might not be able to handle it right now, and we need to like let it do its thing, like we need to be kind to our skin and understanding and treat it like it's a baby's bottom. If something started to get a little irritated, then we need to kind of like back off a little bit. Give it some space. Okay, I feel like that is like all the things cleansing. Let me know if there's anything I forgot, I missed, edited out accidentally, whatever it may be. Leave me a comment down below with your questions. I would love to do a follow-up video either on cleansing, or maybe we can move forward to maybe some more on exfoliation or different treatment steps, serums. And I heard a lot of your requests on going more in depth with the facial tools, and I am working on that, I promise. I hear you, I've read those, and that is coming very soon. But thank you so much for being here for this week's skin therapy session, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.